On this episode of Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans, join me as I discuss the heartbreaking murder of 15-year-old Rachel Barber, the young girl who fell victim to a deadly obsession. Coming up right after this. Hello, my true crime family. Hello. Welcome to Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans. I am your host, Belinda Brady, and welcome, guys. Welcome to my little podcast where I talk to you about Australian murders, true Australian murders over a cup of coffee or two. And if you do hear me sipping, I apologize. I used to edit them out, but now I'm letting them kind of hang around and stay. So feedback, if you don't like them, please let me know. Now, as always, let's jump into where you guys are listening to me from. Now, the top three countries, number one's Australia, number two, New Zealand, number three, the US. And we also have people joining us from the UK, Germany, Canada, Greece, France, and Singapore and Finland. That is absolutely mind-blowing. I love that. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate every single one of you. I love seeing where you are listening to me from. And while I'm on the topic, if you are enjoying my podcast, you can subscribe. You can jump on Buzzsprout. You can find me over there. And you can subscribe where you get bonus ghost stories episodes. Now, you might not think, do I want to hear about ghost stories? Yes, you do. Especially Australian ghosts. They're nasty. Let's find out about them together. And you can also buy me a coffee over on Buy Me a Coffee. And I've had someone buy me a coffee just recently. First ever. Thank you so much. And that person just went along the lines of somebody. So thank you, somebody, wherever you are. Much appreciated. And you can also buy a membership on Buy Me a Coffee too for $5 a month. You can keep me caffeinated so I can keep my little one girl podcast running. I do all the research, editing, all of it. So on top of working and trying not to fall asleep. So it's a job, but I enjoy it so much. So if you are wanting to subscribe, by all means, jump on board. I would love to have you come join me. Now, what am I drinking? For those who know this podcast well, I drink coffee while I'm talking to you guys. And as I record this, I'm drinking my favorite, which is black coffee. And I have a different syrup. I got my hands on one of those Jordan skinny syrup bottles. They're hard to get here in Australia, but I did get them. I won't tell you how much I paid for it because it's toe curling, but I got one. And it is the Voodoo. It was one of their Halloween releases, and I'm really enjoying it. So, yeah, there you go. And also, while I've got you guys, I have two books I'm going to flog. Bolt's First Day, which is about a little green monster who's nervous and anxious about starting school. And Murky Shadows, which is a collection of spooky and dark stories. Both books are awesome. They come from a place in my heart where I just wanted to tell stories. The Bolt's First Day, I wanted to hopefully help kids who get anxious like I used to when I have to start school or start something new. That anxiety is awful, and I just wanted them to know they're not alone. And Murky Shadows, I have spooky stories in my brain. I wrote them, and my awesome publisher, Nightmare Press, said, yep, we'll publish them for you. So shout out to you guys. And both books are available on Amazon.com. So jump on there, check it out. I think you can type my name up and it'll bring it up as well. So, okay, let's get down to business. The sources for this episode, which I have labelled Please Don't, The Murder of Rachel Barber. allthingsinteresting.com, morbidology.com, reddit.com, mamamia.com.au, Rachel Barber Official Memorial, yourwebsitespace.com, Aussie Criminals, wordpress.com, factonca /news, sbs.com.au and theheraldsun.com.au. Now, we all have someone we admire, whether that be a friend or a relative, a co-worker or a model, a football, a sports star, a footy star, or a movie star. There is someone out there that all of us at one point in time have looked at and thought, gee, I wish I looked like her or him. Or at the very least, we wish we had something they had, which, be their lifestyle or their money or their mansion. We wouldn't be human if we didn't have that emotion, that envy. It is what it is. It's what pushes us forward to hopefully better our situation so we can turn our wish into a reality. Now, what happens if that admiration for somebody else turns into something more? And what happens if the person who admires is doing the admiring already has crippling low self-esteem to begin with, and they lock in on a person, and that admiration turns into an obsession, and then that obsession turns into murder? Well, that is the case of today's podcast, and the heartbreaking result is a beautiful and truly loved 15-year-old girl losing her life to an obsession that turns deadly. So settle in, guys, however you're listening to me, driving, gymming, walking, sneaking a little listen at work, settling in for the night, waking up for the morning. I hope you're caffeinated. I hope you've got your coffee if you can, and settle in, guys. Let's get stuck right into Please Don't, the murder of Rachel Barber. Rachel Elizabeth Barber was born on the 12th of September 1983 in Victoria, Australia, and she grew up around Melbourne, which is a suburb in the state of Victoria. Now, she lived with her parents, Michael and Elizabeth, and her two younger sisters, Heather and Ashley Rose, and the family were close. The girls grew up with ducks and chickens and animals, and her home life was a loving, nurturing, supportive one. By all reports, Rachel was the life of the household, and her bubbly personality shone through at a really early age. It was evident from the very beginning that she was destined for something great. And Rachel was a gorgeous girl, inside and out. She was creative and kind and friendly and bubbly and absolutely loved to dance. She loved the musical Cats, and she also loved Chicago, and dancing was her life, absolutely her life. And in September 1998, she attended the Dance Factory, which is a dance studio in Richmond, Victoria, where she had dreams of being a professional dancer. And it was around this time that she had a steady boyfriend, a really sweet boy by the name of Emmanuel, and he was 16. He was known as Manny, and they'd been seeing each other for a few months, and young love was blooming. They were absolutely head over heels in love with each other. They were perfect for each other. Now, in the early 90s, Rachel's family moved to a suburb called Mount Albert, and it was there that they became friendly with a neighbourhood family, the Reeds. Now, the parents bonded through the kids' friendship. So you know how it goes. When your kids make friends, you meet the parents, and the majority of the time you will make a friend with that parent, and sometimes you become very close with those parents, and you've got like a little clique happening. That's how it was with these guys. They had a friendship, and there was a level of trust there. In fact, the Barbers used to get the Reeds' eldest daughter, Caroline, to babysit their kids for them whenever they wanted a night out or whenever they needed it. Now, Caroline was a few years older than these kids, than Rachel and her sisters, but they became friends anyway. So They all became friends eventually. Caroline's younger sisters became friends with Rachel's younger sisters, and eventually Caroline and Rachel then became friends again with that bond, that connection of the sisters already being friends. Now, it needs to be said that look-wise, and I hate saying it, but in this case, it really is quite important, and it is a driving point here. In look-wise, Caroline was lacking when you compared her to Rachel, and she knew it, and she felt it in every cell in her body. Rachel was slim, tall, had beautiful porcelain skin and striking green eyes. And she was upbeat, positive, and loved. She was a beautiful, beautiful girl. And Caroline, in her own words, not mine, I want to make that very clear. In her own words, thought of herself as ugly, fat, and a social failure. And she feared her dreams of acting wouldn't come to pass. So we have Caroline, who's obviously struggling with low self-esteem, who is wallowing in self-pity, and Rachel is just thriving. So you can see where a bit of envy would come into it, but Caroline took it further, and it wasn't long before all Caroline could focus on was Rachel. Now, sometime in 1997, Caroline asked Rachel to pose for photos for some kind of a project, which Rachel did, thinking nothing of it. So she did. She posed for the photos, and that was that. And by the end of 1997, Rachel and her family had moved to Bayswater North, which is another suburb in Victoria, not too far from where they were living. But Rachel kept attending the Dance Factory dance studio, and in 1998, she commenced there full-time. She left school and attended the dance studio full-time, ready to absolutely put everything she had into her dream of being a professional dancer. Now, towards the end of 1998, Caroline called the family. They still kept in touch and asked them for the birth dates of Rachel and her sisters. Now, she told them that she was trying to set up modelling work for Rachel and needed her birthday, her information. Now, no one questioned this because Rachel had already posed for photos for Caroline like a year earlier. So they thought maybe she might be trying to get her set up for some modelling work. So at some point, Caroline tried to get Rachel's birth certificate, or a copy of it at least, after she got that information that she needed. Now, on the 28th of February 1999, so we're not far after that phone call where Caroline's saying, hey, can I have your birth details? I might have some photography work for you. Rachel was on the phone. We had landlines then before mobile phones. Rachel was on the phone, and she was on the phone to Caroline. Now, she spoke a few times to Caroline that night. No one thought anything of it because the girls were friends. And Rachel eventually hung up, went to bed. Again, no one thought anything of it because Caroline was a trusted family friend. Now, on the 1st of March 1999, the day started out like any other. Rachel headed out to the dance factory as normal. Dad dropped her off at the tram stop that morning, and she told him goodbye, telling him she'd meet him at the tram stop at around 6:15 that night. Now, she went to her dance class, hung out with her friends, and told some of them that she was heading off somewhere after dance classes had finished to make money. And she couldn't say what. She said to her friends, I can't tell you what it is, but it's a decent amount of money. I believe she may have been offered between $100 and $500. I've got differing reports when I researched this, so we'll just go between $100 and $500. And she was that keen on this pair of shoes that she'd been eyeing off. She actually rang the store and said, can you please put them on hold for me because I'm about to have some money and I can come down and buy them. So she left the dance factory and said goodbye to her friends, and that was it. The last sighting of her was around an hour later when she was seen getting off a tram with another woman, and this woman was described as plain. Rachel did not come home that night, nor did she come home the next morning. And Rachel's parents knew something was off right away. This wasn't their daughter. Rachel would never take off or stay away, even if it was with friends or her boyfriend, and she would not tell her parents. So they went to the police station near their home, Box Hill Police Station, and reported their daughter missing. There the police told her that Rachel had probably just lost track of time and she'd most likely show up in 48 hours. Now, 48 hours is a long time to wait when you know your teenage daughter would be home if she could be, or she would at least tell you, hey, I'm hanging out with blah, blah. They knew something was wrong. So they weren't happy just to sit around and wait for 2 days. Rachel's parents kept looking for her. They called everyone, her boyfriend, her friends, trying to get an idea of where she might be. They drove around the area looking for her, but they found nothing. By day 3 of Rachel being missing, police told them that they would go to Rachel's dance studio and question the students there, but they never did. And desperate, her parents called a missing persons detective trying to get things moving. But even then, they were told to hold off going to the media or the public with it just yet. So I think after day 3, entering into day 4, the police finally got involved, finally realised, okay, we have a missing person here. This is not usual for Rachel's behaviour. And they go into Rachel's bedroom and they find a list that reads, station, go to Manny, $50 to $80, 3 special things. Now, at this point, they started looking for Rachel, like properly looking for her. Police looked at her last movements, who she had been talking to in the days leading up to her disappearance, anything, I guess, out of the ordinary, and one name stood out. One name kept popping up. Caroline. Remember the phone calls the night before Rachel went missing? Yep, Caroline. She was on the phone to her, and Caroline was now in police sights. Now, before I go any further, I'm gonna stop it right here and go into just who Caroline Reid was. Yes, she was a family friend of the Barbers and babysat the girls for Michael and Elizabeth, but who was she? Now, I touched on what she thought of herself earlier in this episode. She thought she was fat, ugly, and a social failure. But what else was there? Turns out she was an obsessive type. She was born to parents Gail and David Reid, who divorced when she was 16. Now, her mother apparently suffered depression after giving birth to Caroline, which affected her greatly. Now, her family life was not a happy one. And when she told others she dreamed of being an actor, she was laughed at. Her childhood wasn't happy, her teen years weren't happy, and it looked like her 20s were going to follow that pattern. And Rachel symbolised something that Caroline wasn't and something that Caroline didn't have. A happy family, one she described as white picket fence. So Caroline was jealous of everything from looks to family life. At the time of Rachel's disappearance, Caroline was 20, working as an admin assistant and had no issue with drugs or alcohol. Her angst at her life and her jealousy of Rachel grew and grew and grew and took on a whole new form. Now, when police took on the case of Rachel's disappearance, they noticed straight up, because they've tracked everything she's done, that she was on the phone to Caroline the night before she went missing. She was on the phone to her once for 15 minutes and the second time for 29 minutes. Now, the woman who saw Rachel getting off a tram at around 6:40 the night she went missing helped ID the girl she saw Rachel with. She was a spinning image of Caroline. Now, police were also told that around 4 a.m. on the morning of the 2nd of March, the morning after Rachel was last seen, the occupant of a block of flats in Prahan heard crying, sobbing, and what sounded like someone throwing a tantrum coming from flat number 9, which just happened to be Caroline's apartment. Caroline lived in Prahan, which is a suburb not too far from where Rachel lived. On top of this, police also found out that Caroline had called in sick to work nearly every day that week. She went into work on the Monday, I believe, and was that beside herself that a co-worker actually took her home. And then she called in sick for the rest of the week. So on the 12th of March 1999, police paid Caroline a visit. And unable to get entry, they forced their way in, where they found her unconscious on her bedroom floor after having suffered an epileptic fit. Caroline suffered from epilepsy. Now, they accompanied her to the ambulance while some of the police stayed behind and started searching Caroline's apartment. And what they found was chilling. She had tried to dye her hair darker. You know who had darker hair? Rachel. They found clothes in her apartment that would not fit her, but they would fit Rachel. They found Caroline's notes and diaries, and what was written in them was shocking. One entry read, "I feel like a troubled and tortured lost soul thrown into a world of angels," and that Rachel was always wild. Let run barefoot in the country, began dating very young. Very talented at classical ballet, rebelled and gave up a few times, tried modelling, dropped out of school early year 9, began new dance school, strikingly attractive dancer's body. Very pale skin, hypnotic green eyes, dyed hair, lots of different colours. She also wrote, "On the way to dance school, say that she can't tell anyone that she's meeting me, as I'm not allowed to give the study results to anyone. Ethics, highly confidential. Not even your boyfriend, parent. Drug Rachel, toxic over mouth. Put body into army bags and disfigure and dump somewhere way out. No car, meet in toilet block, no cameras, people come into the city, maybe to meet friends, get birth certificate, as we will both go licenses together, then drug her." And on another page was missing people applying for things like birth certificates. Is there a list that this is checked against? Where do rights of missing persons come into place? 6 years. Private detectives. Rent a box so Rachel can't be traced. Rachel, final section of psychology study, needs to pack a small backpack as you're running away. Wallet, money, ID, session, etc. Photo clothes, teddy, ballet shoes. Highly confidential for the study to work properly. You can't tell anybody about this. $100 plus costs, transport. Catch train to city, $2.30 max, full. Meet her outside Flinders, cameras, order pizza, and lace with drowsy powder. After that, go through significant sick bag things, then relaxation techniques, then toxic cloth over mouth, use army bag, and dump off far, far away. Dump bag separately, then I'll drive you home. Check farm, include bag Tuesday, arrange bank loan, moving van, night to disguise hair, thoroughly clean house, and steam carpet. I know I've gone through a lot here. I know I've read out a lot here, but this is Caroline's words. This is how obsessed she was with Rachel. So the police read these notes, these diary entries. They also discovered that she made a loan application and had made an application for the birth certificate of Rachel Elizabeth Barber. Now, she'd also applied for this bank loan in a false name, and it was though Caroline was getting ready to make a run for it and start a new life under a new name. Now, police questioned Caroline when she was in hospital after her seizure, and she cracked. Didn't take much for her to crack, and she confessed to murdering Rachel. The reason? Quite simply, she wanted to be her. Caroline's obsession with Rachel had taken a deadly turn, and Caroline's jealousy and, I guess, obsession with her decided it wasn't enough to just admire this poor girl. She had to be her. Caroline told the police that she had conned Rachel into coming over that night to take part in a secret psychological survey in which she would get paid, but she couldn't tell anybody about it. So those were those two phone calls the night before Rachel went missing. Now, Caroline and Rachel met up after Rachel finished dance class. They got pizza and went back to Caroline's apartment, where Caroline told Rachel they were going to start a relaxation technique. There, Caroline approached Rachel with a phone cord, placed it around her neck, and strangled her. Now, Caroline had also drugged Rachel. She had laced the pizza with an antihistamine, which if you do have enough of that, it can definitely make you drowsy. Though drowsy, Rachel put up a fight, even pleading with Caroline, please don't. But she was no match for a bigger Caroline. Once Rachel was dead, Caroline stuffed her body in her wardrobe where she kept her for 2 days, with the telephone cord still wrapped around her neck. Meanwhile, while her supposed friend was dead in her wardrobe, she called in sick for work and discouraged her father from coming into her apartment because he had heard his daughter was off sick and wanted to make sure that she was okay. In between this, she made plans to run away with a new name and start a new life. She then wrapped Rachel's body up in rugs and put her body in a large army bag, where she then caught a taxi to her father's farm in Kilmore, which is a suburb in Victoria, and she told the taxi driver she was delivering a statue. Now, once on the property, she buried Rachel's body in a shallow grave next to the grave of a family cat she had buried years earlier. Caroline was arrested and charged with the murder of Rachel Barber, and Rachel's body was removed from Caroline's father's farm, and post-mortem tests revealed she had been drugged with an antihistamine prior to her being strangled. She was laid to rest at Lilydale Memorial Park in Victoria. Caroline Reid stood trial in October 2000, where she pled guilty to Rachel's murder. A court-appointed clinical psychologist who interviewed Caroline told the court there was a poignant and disturbing moment in which Rachel Barber's fate seemed to waver in the balance. Caroline told me that she had been in a daze. Then just for a moment the veil lifted and I didn't want to do it. But something said that I was in so much trouble now I had to. And it was though the veil had dropped again. Now, Caroline was eventually diagnosed with deeply entrenched personality disorder, which contributed to her conduct. But Judge Vincent, who was overseeing the case, stated, "For my part, I find the deliberation and malevolence with which you acted extremely disturbing." Now, Rachel's parents made a victim impact statement, which said in part, "It is tragic in Caroline's naivety. She had never seen the side of Rachel that was not happy. The Rachel who struggled academically at school. Socially, she was loved. The Rachel who gave up dance at 13 due to ill health and an over-disciplinary dance teacher. The Rachel who at 14 told her father, 'I know why I'm so miserable. It is because I'm not dancing.' A fact we had known for that year. The girl who had been afraid to return to dance because she feared the severity of what she wrongly assumed an excellent teacher to be. And finally, her decision to return to dance, but to musicals and contemporary dance, as she was now afraid of her love, ballet. Caroline was sentenced to 20 years in jail for the murder of 15-year-old Rachel Barber, and she was given 14 years and 6 months parole. Now, Caroline Reed, who changed her name by deed poll to Caroline Reed Robertson, was eventually released from jail in 2015 after serving her minimum sentence. And Rachel's mother, Elizabeth, said that Caroline and her family should not be harassed because she has a personality disorder and it is not the safest, it's not in the safest interest of the community. She went on to say, because I don't think it would be good to push somebody with a personality disorder into a corner where they can't see any way out. So the best possibility for everybody is for no vigilantes, nobody to go heckling her, and just let her get on with what she's got of her life. She also said that Caroline Reed Robertson, has never shown remorse for murdering her daughter Rachel. And there we have it, guys. True crime family. The story of the depressed young woman whose obsession and envy of a family friend took a deadly turn. And what did it achieve apart from heartache? A young girl is dead. Her family will miss her every day. Her friends will miss her every day. And for what? All these years later, it still doesn't make sense. It does not make sense why Rachel Barber had to be murdered. But I guess that separates us from them, right? I mean, we ask these questions, and the people who commit these horrific, god-awful crimes do not stop to ask themselves these questions. All that heartache, all that pain, all that misery, all that grief, for what? Caroline Reed Robertson thought that by murdering Rachel Barber, she could become her, steal her essence somehow. And in the words of the Barber family via Rachel Barber official memorial, yourspacewebsite.com, become Rachel? Never. My heart goes out to Rachel's family and her friends, and may Rachel's memory be a beautiful blessing in all your lives. And there we have it, guys. Another episode of Crime Scenes with Coffee Beans, done and dusted. Thank you so much for your company, my beautiful true crime family. Thank you so much. You're all rock stars. Again, you can reach me on TikTok, my Buzzsprout website. You can buy me a coffee. You can send me a text. You can send me a comment on my YouTube channel. Don't be shy. I don't bite. Let's connect. Let's get in touch. And as always, thank you again for your company. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay cool, and stay caffeinated. I will catch you all later.